Hey everyone, and welcome back to Metaphysics Podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into a concept that might just totally change how you think about abundance. The vortex.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to stick with us for this one. By the end, you might have some powerful new tools for maybe shifting your financial reality.
We're going to be exploring how your thoughts and feelings actually impact your finances, and most importantly, how you might be able to shift your energy to attract what you desire.
Right, we'll be breaking down some really fascinating ideas about the vortex from the source material for this episode.
Yes, speaking of the vortex, the source describes it as like this wellspring of limitless abundance available on a vibrational level. And it even says there's enough in your vortex to keep you thriving for like 20 or 30 lifetimes. Now, if that doesn't get you curious, I don't know what will. What do you think about that idea?
Well, it's a powerful image for sure. What if all that prosperity is already there, just waiting to be accessed? The source material explains the vortex as this realm of pure potential, where our desires already exist in a vibrational form.
Okay, so how do we actually tap into this vortex? What are the mechanics behind it all?
Well, think of it like a radio. If you're always tuned to a station of worry and lack, that's the frequency you're putting out, and that's what you're going to experience. But if you can shift your frequency to one of abundance and gratitude, you start to align with the vortex. That's where the source material suggests things start to shift.
So we're talking about vibrational alignment, right? Can you explain that a bit more for our listeners?
Sure, the source explains it this way. Every thought and feeling emits a vibration, and the law of attraction is constantly responding to those vibrations, bringing back experiences that match. Basically, it's like a continuous feedback loop.
Okay, so if the universe is reflecting back what we're putting out there, how do we make sure we're attracting the abundance we want? The source material mentions vibrational currency. What is that exactly?
It's a really interesting concept. The source suggests that our thoughts and feelings are like a currency that we use to interact with the universe. Imagine you walk into a store and try to pay with, I don't know, some currency they don't accept. You won't get very far, right?
Right.
It's the same idea here. If we're trying to attract abundance, but our dominant thoughts and feelings are rooted in scarcity, we're essentially using the wrong currency.
So how do we switch to the currency of abundance, so to speak?
This is where things get really interesting. The source suggests we have to align our thoughts and feelings with the abundance that our inner being already possesses. It says, and I quote, "Your inner being is going to stand in your prosperity. You got to find a way to be there too." So it's about bridging the gap between what our inner being knows and what we're consciously experiencing.
So we're not just talking about surface level affirmations here.
Exactly. It's about a deeper alignment, a true resonance with the energy of abundance.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like a really big shift. How can we start making those changes, especially if we're used to focusing on what we lack?
Well, the source emphasizes that changing our vibration is a practice, not a one-time fix. It might take time to see results. It actually says, we're going to keep talking until you hear some new news, because until you find another way of looking at this, nothing's going to shift in you. I found that to be a really powerful statement.
I agree. It highlights that lasting change takes consistent effort and a willingness to challenge our habitual thought patterns. But where do we even begin?
A good place to start is awareness. Think about your relationship with money. Do you tend to focus on what you lack, or do you feel a sense of gratitude for what you have? Just noticing your dominant thoughts and feelings is a huge step towards making a change.
I think that's a great place to pause for now. Listeners, take a moment to reflect on that question. What is your dominant feeling when it comes to money? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome back to Metaphysics Podcast. We're continuing to explore this idea of the vortex and its connection to abundance.
Yeah, last time we left off talking about becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings about money. It's like taking inventory of our vibrational currency, like we were talking about.
Exactly. And now we want to dive a little deeper into how we can shift that currency towards abundance.
Yeah, the source material emphasizes that, manifesting abundance isn't just about wishing for things. It's about becoming a vibrational match for our desires, aligning our energy with the frequency of what we want.
So it's not just thinking positive thoughts. It's about really feeling that sense of abundance. How do we make that shift, from a mental concept to something we can actually feel?
Well, the source material talks about bridging the gap between our thoughts and our feelings. If we're saying all the right affirmations, but deep down we're still feeling scarcity, then we're sending mixed signals to the universe.
That makes sense. But bridging that gap, I mean, that can feel really challenging, especially if we've always been taught that money is hard to come by or that we don't deserve to be wealthy.
Right. Those beliefs can be huge roadblocks, for sure.
So how do we dismantle those beliefs and replace them with something more empowering?
Well, the source suggests that we really examine those limiting beliefs and make a conscious choice to replace them with thoughts that are in alignment with abundance.
Okay, so could you give our listeners an example of how to do that?
Sure. Let's say you have this belief that money is hard to come by, right?
Mm.
So you could challenge that by asking yourself, is that always true? Can I think of times when money has come to me easily or unexpectedly? And then start affirming things like, money flows to me easily and effortlessly.
So it's about consciously choosing to focus on a different possibility, even if we haven't fully experienced it yet.
Exactly. Shifting our perspective and choosing to believe that abundance is possible. The source also talks about acting as if. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, at first I thought it meant like spending money as if I already had tons of it, which honestly felt a little irresponsible. But then I realized it's more about embodying that energy of abundance in subtle ways.
That's a great point. It's not about pretending. It's about aligning our energy with what we want.
So can you give our listeners some examples of what acting as if might look like when it comes to abundance?
Sure. So instead of always saying no to little things that bring you joy because you're worried about money, maybe treat yourself to something special once in a while. Or instead of focusing on what you can afford, focus on appreciating what you do have and express gratitude for it.
I like that. It's about shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance in our everyday actions.
Exactly. And you know what else the source highlights? Giving.
But wouldn't giving money away seem counterintuitive, especially if we're trying to attract more of it?
It does kind of seem that way, right? But the source material suggests that giving, when it comes from a genuine place of abundance, is a way of showing the universe that we have faith in its unlimited supply. It's like saying, hey, universe, I trust that you'll always provide.
So it's not about giving out of obligation or guilt, but out of a feeling of generosity, knowing there's plenty to go around.
Exactly. And remember, giving doesn't always have to be about money. We can give our time, our talents, our love, our support. All those things contribute to the flow of abundance.
I love that. It shifts the focus from, I don't have enough, to, I have so much to share.
Yes. And giving should always feel good, too. If it feels forced or resentful, it's probably not coming from a genuine place.
So we need to be mindful of our intentions, make sure our giving is aligned with our desire for more abundance.
Absolutely. And speaking of alignment, you know what else the source talks about? Surrender.
When I hear that word surrender, I kind of think, doesn't that contradict all this talk about taking action and creating our reality?
Yeah, it can sound that way, but the source addresses that. Surrender, in this sense, doesn't mean giving up on our dreams. It means letting go of how it happens and trusting that the universe knows best.
Okay, so it's about letting go of control and allowing the universe to work its magic.
Exactly. Having faith that the universe has our back, even when we don't always understand how things are unfolding.
It's like we're dancing between effort and allowance. We're taking steps toward our goals, but trusting the universe is also working behind the scenes.
You got it. And the more we practice that dance, the easier things might flow.
This whole concept is kind of a mind bender, but in a good way. It's making us really rethink how we create our own reality.
I agree. It's a real shift in perspective.
And listeners, we really want to know how this is resonating with you. Have you ever felt the power of surrender in your life? Share your thoughts and stories with us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome back to Metaphysics Podcast. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the vortex and how it can unlock abundance.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. Shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance, aligning our energy with what we want, practicing things like gratitude, visualization, affirmations, even that acting as if we talked about.
Right, and we've explored that idea of surrender, letting go of the outcome, and trusting that the universe knows what it's doing.
And we've talked about giving, from a place of abundance, recognizing that we're all part of this big flow of energy.
But let's be real for a second. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. So what happens when things get tough? When challenges pop up? Does that mean we're not aligned with the vortex anymore?
That's a great question. And I think it's something a lot of people wonder about. The source material actually says that challenges, they're a natural part of the journey.
So we shouldn't look at them as failures or like we're doing something wrong.
Not necessarily. The source material says that contrast, like going through tough times, it helps us really understand what we want. It's like those challenges help us see those beliefs that might be holding us back.
So it's about using those setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning. But how do we actually shift our perspective, in those moments when everything feels like it's falling apart? It's easier said than done, right?
Absolutely, it takes practice. But the source reminds us that our emotions, they're like these powerful indicators of our vibrational alignment. So if we're feeling stressed, anxious, discouraged, it's probably a sign that we've kind of gotten off track.
So instead of fighting those negative emotions, we can actually use them as feedback, to get back on track.
Exactly. Just acknowledge how you feel, let those feelings be there, and then gently shift your focus back to what you want. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can I use this to be even more clear about what I want?
It's like those challenges have hidden gifts. I love that. It helps us see them as these signposts, leading us towards our goals. But what about when it feels like we're doing everything right, but we're still not seeing results? How do we stay motivated?
Well, it's good to remember that manifesting, it's not always a straight line, Sometimes it feels like things are moving so slowly and then suddenly everything falls into place.
So patience is key.
Definitely. The source really emphasizes trusting the universe's timing. We're working with something much bigger than ourselves here.
That's a good point. But what about those limiting beliefs, the ones that just keep coming back, even when we're trying to be positive? It's like they're sabotaging us.
Yeah, that's where self-awareness and consistent practice come in. The more we notice our thoughts and feelings, the quicker we can catch those beliefs and reframe them. It's like weeding a garden. The more we remove the weeds, the more our flowers can bloom.
I love that. It shows how important it is to have a positive mental environment. Is there anything else we can do to support this whole transformation process? The source mentions connecting with nature.
Oh, yeah. The source says spending time in nature helps us to ground our energy and reconnect with the universe's natural rhythms. It reminds us of how much abundance is all around us.
So just a walk in the park can be a powerful practice.
Totally. Nature is full of abundance. It can help us connect with our true selves and listen to our intuition.
I'm definitely going to try to spend more time in nature. The source also mentions meditation as a way to connect with the vortex. What do you think about that?
Meditation is a great way to quiet the mind, and create space for inspiration and guidance. It's in that stillness that we can often hear our intuition and get those downloads that help us.
So it's about creating that space inside ourselves, being open to those insights.
Exactly. Meditation helps us connect with the infinite potential, both inside and around us.
Well, we've really explored a lot about the vortex in this deep dive.
Yeah.
What are some key things you'd want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing is that abundance is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly growing, expanding, and aligning. And it starts with that inner shift, that belief in the vortex and in our ability to access it.
Beautifully said. Remember, everyone, embrace the ups and downs. Trust the timing of the universe and never give up on your dreams. And as always, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Until next time, keep those vibrations high and remember, abundance is your birthright.